Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of More Insights and Strategy Hot Desk Podcast. This is episode 35. I am Melody Brue, and I'm joined by Robert Kramer. We are both VP and Principal Analysts. Robert covers ERP and enterprise data. I cover modern work, HCM, CX, and a couple of other acronyms. And of course, we both are always interested in the glue that holds it all together, which is data, which we'll talk about quite a bit on this show. We are going to be talking today about Verint Engage. There's a lot of events called Engage, Robert. We're going to have to talk about that. Microsoft Dynamics, Cohesity, Salesforce, Commvault, Box, Hub. So we got a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. While we will discuss publicly traded companies on the show, its contents should not be taken as investment advice. So before we get started, Robert, you and I just had a quick little chat on our pre-show here, and I found out what I think is a very odd thing about you, which is you don't like peanut butter, and I think that's weird.
I know. The thing is, I like to crack the peanuts. It's kind of fun, and they taste good, but the smell of peanut butter, it's a turn off to me. So I'm out.
So no peanut butter in general.
My wife was actually eating it the other day next to me. I'm like, okay, can you, or I had to walk away or you walk away because it smelled so bad. I just hate it. Interesting, my son's highly allergic to it, so it's helped me keep it out of the house for such a long time. So,
I mean,
kind of fun.
If you have to
What
keep
about
it away
you?
for that reason, but otherwise, like,
You like it a lot? Do you dip like celery in it and apples and peanut butter jelly sandwiches?
it's funny that you say that because I eat almost everything. I'm not a picky eater at all, but one thing I really don't like is celery. But
Okay.
I drink celery juice sometimes just because there's like this big health thing about that where it helps like cleanse your liver and all the things, but I really don't enjoy celery. So anyway,
Okay.
I thought that was
What's a fun fact for you? What's something that you don't like?
that I don't like other than celery.
That's it.
I like a lot of things actually, but I would say like a funny fun fact about me that people have a lot of trouble believing is that I grew up around in a circus family, and so I not only can I do the flying trapeze, but
Oh,
yes, I learned the flying trapeze when I was like 7 years old. But I also speak a language that is called Carney. It's a language
okay.
that carnival people speak, and I'm not going to do it on this podcast. One day I will speak Carney
It's
to you.
impressive.
Anybody who speaks Carney, I can translate. So yeah, it's not something you would expect about me that I grew up in a circus family, but there you have it. Anyway,
Okay.
speaking of circuses, we have had some busy times, and we've got a lot to talk about. So,
Yes.
is it Verint Engage
Variant. Should we start?
last week? Yeah, I'll get started on that. So, Verint we've talked about them a little bit before, but it's CX automation, and Verint at this particular show, they had a few different announcements, but really, I think the main focus was they are very focused on AI business outcomes. They actually trademarked, which I gave a little feedback about that. I thought it was a little funny. Trademarked the phrase AI business outcomes now. Don't know if that phrase needs to be trademarked, but because I don't know who will steal it.
I'm not sure that works as well as they think it does, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the deal, like, where they're focused is on business outcomes and not necessarily AI for AI's sake, and I had a couple of meetings with some of their customers. We talked about the different bots, and I think some people kind of get a little too in their head about, what's AI, what's an agent, what's a bot, what's the difference, all of these things where it's in the workflow. But these bots are actually really, if you look at it really simplistically, it just is like brings you to an outcome. So
Mhm.
if you take out this AI outcomes now kind of language and you just say like a bot equals an outcome, it makes a whole lot of sense, right? So, they have like
Simplify it.
yeah. So they have this Genie bot in their speech analytics. So the Genie bot can really accelerate the time that it takes to get insights from just customer interactions in the contact center. So instead of days or weeks for analysts to go comb through all this information, the Genie bot you can talk to the Genie bot using Gen AI and just ask it questions. Quickly get to the why. And there's all kinds of different kind of benefits of these various Verint bots. One that I really like that I've called out before is their time flex bot. And here's where the all of the language and the naming gets a little bit confusing, especially as we are introducing AI agents into the whole conversation, because we're talking about contact center agents, bots, and now agents. But their TimeFlex bot is actually a scheduling bot that gives contact center agents agency over their schedule. So they can kind of create their own schedule using basically like what you would consider sort of like a coin or a token, trade for different different points in a schedule. And it gives them the freedom of their schedule. It doesn't have to be approved by a supervisor because it's already set within the parameters of what that organization will tolerate or what they allow. So say, HR has already set the parameters of how many hours you can work or how many shifts you have to work in order for you to receive your benefits. All of these things are already set. And then the contact center agents, which I have to clarify because of other AI agents, the contact center agents are able to really create their own schedules, have that flexibility, which is so important, what everybody wants. And I talked to one customer who rolled it out in his contact center, and he said that the response from his employees was, "I feel like I'm being treated like a grown-up." And, so that's important. But, in general, Engage, and I'll do a more thorough write-up, but I really like the sort of the you can build on these bots. So say, you want one for the behavioral data, you want one for the speech analytics, you want one for the time flex. None of them interfere with each other. They can kind of all interact. And I think as they get more and more sophisticated, they'll even be able to talk to each other. They might be able to pick up on, some sentiment from the contact center agent, make sure that as they're trading out these, various different time slots in their schedule, that we're not getting close to like any sort of danger of attrition. There's a lot of stuff that they can do with this. So the business outcomes, good. The trademarked tagline.
Well, a
But
couple of
great.
things on that. Do you think that what are the keys to success for these bots or agents? Do you think the trust is a big deal? Like like yourself, even like when you go on a site and the bot comes on and or the agent, and you're gonna, interact with it, do you trust it? Or do you go right to trying to get a phone call with someone? Because sometimes you can't even get to talking to somebody now.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, that's what they call self-service in the contact center. And that's the goal, is to try to get as many of the issues resolved using self-service so that the contact center agents can concentrate on kind of the higher touch things.
Hmm.
So that containment rate is important in the contact center. And what a lot of these bots will do is to help them to keep that containment rate high, make sure that there are a lot of things that can be resolved really easily. So say you just need to reset your password. You probably don't want to talk to a person for that. You probably just want to like hit a few buttons, identify yourself, be done, right? You don't want to wait in
Yep.
line. So the goal of these business outcomes using AI isn't to eliminate the contact center agent. It isn't to eliminate choice from the consumer of how they interact with the contact center. It's to actually broaden the choice, give them more, different modes of contacting, whether it's text, some now video, there's all kinds of different ways that people want to interact. But while keeping the actual people agents, the contact center agents, doing the more meaningful work and,
Sure.
talking to the high
Strategically put
value
it in the right
customers
place.
and solving the bigger problems and all of that.
Yep.
But there definitely is an element of trust from the consumer end, and even, from the enterprise side, people are a little bit weary of even incorporating AI because of some of the stories that they've heard. What's good to see, and what I saw at Engage, was the customers telling their stories of success and having what I would consider, a fairly good ROI story. A lot of it is self-reported, so I'd really like to see something that's a little bit
Hmm.
more third-party data. And, some of it is like, we saved this much by, having these many issues in that were self-contained. But then when you really dig into it, they're using, let's say, like a supervisor salary times the number
Hmm.
of calls to get to that number, and not everybody is paid that
Hmm.
supervisor salary. So, take it with a grain of salt on the ROI, but we're able to actually see real ROI at the event, talking to customers and hearing their pain points. Like I said, I'll be doing a bigger write-up with kind of more of my thoughts on that. So we should probably move on. You had a big research paper with Cohesity, and
Yep. Well, let me talk a little bit first about Microsoft. Let's hit that one first.
do I have that out of
My,
order? I'm sorry.
no big deal. Microsoft released that they're phasing out, call it sunsetting of the Microsoft Dynamics GP, which is Great Plains. It's actually been around for a while, and it's one of those things that I actually bought. Microsoft bought Great Plains in 2001, so they've had it for quite a while. But they have a really a better or bigger and more robust, modernized solution called Business Central. It's Dynamics 365 Business Central. When you have ERP applications at the vendor, you really don't want to have multiple ones that compete against each other. So Great Plains and Dynamics 365 Business Central somewhat do. So you want to be able to get those companies off of that older one onto the newer one. But it's more of a support thing, that they're not going to want to be able to support multiple versions or multiple applications that are older, that aren't easily able to be done from a support standpoint. So what they've done is they've done a really nice thing, is they're supporting it for another 5 years till 2029, security updates another 7 years to 2031. And this is key, a lot of their vendors that are already selling, the resellers, they're already doing the Great Plains, also are doing the Business Central, so they can transition these customers to the newer, more modern version. And I think a lot of them have actually done that, because I did some research, and there's quite a bit of companies that were on Great Plains years ago, and today there's only like about a fourth of those. So it's changed a lot, but this is a pretty big play for them to sunset it. And then they're offering these companies, if they're a larger company or growing to be a larger company, they can go to their ERP solution, their larger one, which is the finance and supply chain management application. For
That's
some
on
reason, they named. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's on Dynamics 365. For some reason, they named it what?
Yeah, it's a little interesting, and maybe I'll have a chat with Microsoft and see why they did that. But their ERP system is called Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain Management. So it's not Microsoft Dynamics ERP anymore. They renamed it, and it's one of those things that it sounds a little bit more accounting based, but it's not. It's their full-fledged ERP system. So that's some very good news, and I think that we'll see how it goes. So we
So
can.
I think,
Go ahead.
it's kind of that's interesting from a naming perspective, because what we talked about with Oracle, that ERP, people say, like, I don't really want to call it ERP. Nobody wants to go to work and say, I want to do some enterprise resource planning today. So maybe there is a little bit to that, where that is, finance and supply chain management is a big reason why people are using an ERP system. So,
Good
but
point.
One of the things I think Microsoft has done really well with this is give a really long runway and a lot of tools for companies to migrate. So, I mean, they're looking, 5 years out. Sometimes when we see announcements like this, it's like you have a year and a half, maybe it's read only for a little bit, and then you're going to transition you. But for 5 years out on some of the timelines, plus all of the product support, all of the data migration tools that are supported by Microsoft. And then I think they announced that there's a lot of different capabilities to support different scenarios, like if people aren't going to move over, they may, like you said, may have more complex requirements, but a lot of different resources to help businesses with the migration. So I think we do have a briefing on this, a little more, not a briefing, a little more of a deeper dive on this coming up. So we can
Yep. What's
revisit this, but
what's interesting about Microsoft is that they own the space or own part of the space in the following, which is the ERP space. They own the CRM space. They're a big player in that, and also the workplace. So it allows the customer to have their data in one spot or with one vendor. And I think that helps their technology stack and their data management capabilities. And then this leads into, the modernization of certain technologies using those like AI and to be able to have success.
yeah.
So
I think I look forward to seeing, kind of the deeper dive, and I think we should revisit this. Let's make a note to do so. So now, since I jumped
yep.
the gun on Cohesity, we'll go back to that. And so you had a
yeah.
research paper.
Yeah. I just did a substantial research paper of Cohesity is acquiring part of Veritas. It's kind of a big deal, and we're seeing a lot of the companies in many different spaces within IT acquiring each other, expanding their ecosystems, or acquiring someone in their ecosystem to become larger. Competitors are now, alliances, or they're being bought. So this is one of them. And what this does is it really just gives Cohesity a different element. So it allows them to be more global, where before they might have been a little bit more less global, more regional, and it gives them the traditional aspects of what Veritas has with the innovations that Cohesity has. And I think this is a really strong thing. The deal combines, the speed of what Cohesity has, but some of the things that Veritas has is a large presence of customers. So I think combined, they're going to be about 13,000 customers. And they say that they have about 85 of the top Fortune 100 companies. Revenues are expected to be just from this merger about $2 billion next year. So I think this is a pretty strong play. What's also happening in their space, one of their competitors, Commvault, who acquired a company a little bit earlier this year, Appranix, which is a technology for recovering cloud resources, is also acquiring another company that's called Clumio to help out with their Amazon Web Services customers. They have capabilities specifically within that realm for cloud-based cybersecurity that is featured on the S3 of Amazon. So we're seeing these alliances really come together where there's acquisitions versus expansion. So it allows companies to buy those acquisitions for that expansion. But I think you're seeing that everywhere.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Like, how much do you think that there's that need for consolidation in the security market in general, and versus like just this, what some companies just talk about, like being a really open ecosystem. Is the consolidation just necessary?
I think it's necessary because I think security is a bigger problem than people are making it out to be, because all these SaaS applications and then the ERP applications, there's a major security problem pretty much everywhere, and there's not enough protection to actually get around to get these protection that is needed. It's more of a resiliency than a data protection that's needed. So it's going to happen. how do you get back to normal, or how are you not affected that you can be back to where you need to be? So I think that the technology is needed because you can't grow quick enough with the innovation to be able to handle these data security problems. You need to acquire to get those additional innovations. And that's what Commvault's doing. They're getting additional technologies that they didn't have by strengthening what they need from a cyber resiliency and data protection within the Amazon services that they particularly did not potentially have. So I think it's definitely, if you had the runway to innovate, great. If you don't, then you acquire. So it just depends what market, but the data security market is a huge market for the companies need to be able to tackle the problems that they're going to have. And I think that it's growing and it's not getting any better.
Yeah, I think the speed in which it takes sometimes to catch up to a competitor, if these companies can afford to just buy them, and sometimes it's a buy them to kill them, and sometimes it's a buy them to get their technology.
That's a good point.
And
Today,
yeah, sometimes it's to get their technology, sometimes it's to kill their technology, sometimes it's to get the talent, right? So I think there's a number of different things that are happening in a lot of these various mergers and acquisitions. But another one, unless you have anything more to say on that one.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think it is in today's world? Because the buy to kill isn't seen as much as is to buy to get the innovation, or the buy to get the resources. Because last week we talked about IBM buying resources to help with ERP transformations. This week we're talking about acquisitions for technology, but it doesn't seem the buy to kill is as prevalent as those in today's world, because it's so fast, competition is so fierce, technology is needed more rapidly, and it's just so competitive out there.
Yeah, I think that there's some element of like the absorption of certain technologies into something that already exists in a company. So where you may look at an acquisition and be like, well, they already have that capability. So are they buying this? Is it to strengthen that capability? Is it to make sure that they can kind of, maybe it's combining forces, but sometimes I do think there is a little bit of an element of let's just, be sure that this isn't, there are plenty of acquisitions that Apple, Google, many others have made over the last few years that have just kind of disappeared after that.
Yep.
Not in any sort of sinister way, but they may bring everything in and look at the code and realize it's just not, obviously that should be done in due diligence, but it may just be something where there's a pivot and that's just not needed anymore. But
Right.
One thing I think, so over the past couple of weeks, we've all been very much paying attention to Salesforce after their Dreamforce conference and the big AI agent announcements. I published today something in Forbes about the AI agents kind of on the CX and CRM side, and some retail, some other use cases.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Anderson on our team published just a kind of general overview of AI agents, which is really great. Both of them, I think, both of them are linked in the show notes. But in order for Dreamforce to kind of get to this vision of Agentforce, a big part of that is their data cloud. And so they have just acquired Zoomin, a data management provider for unstructured data. So that's to help with their data cloud. Tell me why they didn't have this before.
I think that they didn't realize that they potentially didn't have the ability to access that unstructured data like they thought they did. So this gives them a little bit more of a handle on that unstructured data, because it's a key component. So an example would be if there's Zoom Info can help them with missing or outdated information in Salesforce records to make sure that the customer data is up to date. there could be missing stuff there because we've always used Salesforce. Another example would be, ZoomInfo can identify potential leads automatically.
Zoom in. It just
Zoom in. Sorry, not
yeah.
ZoomInfo. Zoom in. I don't know why I said that. Apologize. Maybe I had too much peanut butter before.
It's
Yeah.
Friday and we're all
Zoom in the info from Zoom in. Anyway, so they can have potentially some of these leads that they're not getting in the CRM from Salesforce. It can help identify those because it's from unstructured data. So it can automatically be put into the system. This unstructured data element is a big deal because I think that's where a lot of the data is. When I've used Salesforce, we were always missing something somewhere, and it's a key component. Now, I will tell you, I do think there's some potential hurdles. Not that that's not going to be overcome, but how do you get the information to where it matches up and it's correct, and then the missing information is identified and put forth correctly. So there's some great tools within Salesforce, the MuleSoft, a lot of the connectors they have like over 300 connectors. So they should be able to make this happen. But the Zoom in the acquisition is like what we just talked about. It's one of those things. It's from a technology innovation perspective versus a kill perspective or customer perspective.
Yeah. So I read something that the CEO of Zoomin said, which like last week we talked about the devil is in the data, right? And now this week I think this should be the new one. He said that their joint mission is to support and make sure AI doesn't hit the data wall. I think it's a very good way to put that, right? Because just constantly hearing it's like AI is going to be only as good as the data that it's working with. So
yeah, what do you think? Like 6 months, 9 months ago, everybody wasn't really talking about the data, and how did they think AI was going to work if they didn't have the data at the right stage? I think the data is everything, and this is a really smart example of buying a company that has access or ability with their platform for that unstructured data to bring it in and help out these AI agents to be more successful. Because I think that they put a lot of hype on the agent force, which it has tremendous capabilities, but we've seen all these demos, and the demos are obviously always going to be good, but it's based upon this data being at the level that it needs to be. And this is probably a very smart move. But like you asked, why did they just wait till now? I think that they thought they had a handle on the unstructured data.
Well, and they probably did. I mean, when you look at how quickly these tools are changing, and we're in phase 1 to phase 2 so quickly, and the needs of all of these applications change really quickly. So maybe it's not, there may be a difference between not necessarily having a handle on the data versus it's more than kind of what they bargained for, or they need more than what they thought to really move forward quickly. And I mean, you and I both watched all of the keynotes and everything and Mark Benioff he is charging ahead on this. This is not like, hey, we're going to, check this out. We're going to dip our toes in here. This is like a full-fledged, we are going to be the biggest and the best at this. And, I mean, they have they are number one in the CRM market by a long shot. And that is, the goal is to maintain that. So one of the things that I wrote this in the Forbes piece that I just published, but we all talked about that the Benioff encouraging people to really get their hands in and play around with creating your own agent and all of that at Dreamforce. And then they're doing this Agentforce tour where they're actually going to take it on the road. They're not going to be in Austin, so they'll be in Dallas.
I saw that.
So I plan to go because I really do think it's important to see, is this as simple as people say, or as Salesforce says, and is it going to be simple for people outside of that environment where you have people helping you and holding your hand to do it. So I look forward to kind of playing around
No,
with
I think it's a big deal. So one of the previous companies I worked for, we had Salesforce and SAP, and a lot of my team would ask, like, why is Salesforce, not as robust as they thought it would be? And I go, what do you mean? Well, half the data is there, and why isn't it there? It must be Salesforce, but it's not Salesforce because the data is coming from somewhere else. So that's part of the key part of Data Cloud is to, that's why I would encourage all the people that are using it to get that Data Cloud at the highest level of accuracy and information. So then everything feeding off of it will work better.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, I think we can move on to the next one, which is, more, it all, I feel like it all comes down to data, how we're organizing data, and also how we're distributing data and content management. So Box they've had Box Hubs in beta for some time now. I think it was in November of 2023 when they went into beta. So Box Hubs is a solution that allows users to create basically these centralized microsites that are for content sharing within and without and outside of an organization. So the users are able to create and publish content from their Box accounts for access by other Box users, but it can all be controlled. So let's say, I'm in events planning and I need to share budgets, planning documents, all of the things with various teams, but I don't have to share all of it with the team. I can give certain permissions, and nobody has to go searching for it. There was a study, and I should have it up, but if I can quickly find it, it was actually an IBM study. Employees spend an average of 3 hours daily searching for information. I wonder how much that's changed since people are actually using AI for search, but 3 hours daily. And so Box Hubs really it enables people to have the information centralized, distribute it to people who need it, cut down on that time for search, but it eliminates old drafts. So say you're searching for something and you're in let's say our More Insights and Strategy in our Google Drive. If I have an old draft of something, that old draft may be in there. And if you're using AI to then come through, ask it to search all of these documents, you may actually be getting the wrong information because not everybody manages their content the way that we all should, right? If you save an old draft, things have changed, and then you have AI go, you have it go searching all of your information, having those old drafts in there can actually be quite dangerous for what's going to come out, from the content. So Hubs also eliminates that. So I think so now it's launched in general availability, and I think it's a really big addition to how Box is kind of handling the content management. I mean, this is a big market, content management. We see Zoho WorkDrive does it. Adobe's Gen Studio is addressing the same kind of issue in content management, publishing control kind of challenges. So that control of document containment, permissions, and security all in one place is something that I think Box Hubs addresses really well.
Is it their sole purpose, their sole niche versus some of the other ones is not? So then do they have more of a handle on it, or do you think that the competition is a pretty even playing field?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Their sole what?
It's Box's niche, specifically content management, and then their competition is not necessarily content management only. So do you think that they have the lead on that industry, or the competition is pretty neck and neck?
So there, I mean, where Box is really very strong is, I mean, they definitely have their strength is in their content management, obviously, and that's kind of, the category. But they now have Box AI. But Box really, what they're really known for and what they started out with is a very secure document management. Like their security is every investor that I've ever worked with, back in my previous life, um, all of their content is managed on Box. So really, I think they have a very strong hold on security. They've now introduced Box AI, which also, they've worked with OpenAI to develop Box AI. They have a really very intensive AI that can go into the content also with permissions, so that you can access different content, different permissions. But now they've added so many different things. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like just content, because now they can, they're integrated with Microsoft. They're integrated with like different signing, like DocuSign type of, ability to complete documentation, all of that. So it's not, I wouldn't say, yes, it's content management, but it's grown into a lot more than that. And when we talk about, agents, I have a feeling that they will play a big part in how companies can manage their workflows within their content, because I think they've been ahead of the game on, even just from a thought leadership perspective. Their CEO, Aaron Levy, has been, if you look at his Twitter or X, he's been talking about agents and kind of this next evolution of AI for a really long time. And so I would not be surprised if Box becomes very central in keeping document management contained in a way that agents can actually access the right documents at the right time. This is not something they've said they're doing. I'm not speaking for them. I'm saying this, that I can imagine them doing that based on their capabilities.
Well, I like how they started with security. That's a big deal, like you said. But also the user interface is very pleasing. It's easy to use. It's very modern from the way that I see it. So they got a
It's
great program and great platform.
And I have to say, I am not the best at like the way that I manage my folders and name things, and I try to be much better at that because I'm a really organized person in my life. And I think the way that Box handles their content management and the way that they have developed AI, and another thing I would not be surprised to see from them is sort of these little like kind of jabs at like, doesn't that do you, this looks like it belongs here. These files look like they belong together. So like reining in people like me who may not have it all filed the way that it should. And that would be a really welcome feature for me. But anyway, let's
That would
move
be.
on. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. One of the things that I mentioned actually in the Salesforce piece that I published today is that it is worth mentioning that ServiceNow, Microsoft, Google, there have been several others, Workday, multiple others have announced AI agents in the last couple of weeks. So we have just a whole slew of analysts who will be on the road in several different places. And I think there will be a lot of various kind of hot takes coming in from all of More Insights and Strategy, not just us.
Definitely.
I'm going next to Cadence Design System is having an event in Menlo Park that is Fem AI, which I'm very excited about. That is, they're bringing more women into AI. And then from there, I go to Boston for Microsoft's big analyst AI event. How about you? What are you up to?
So I'm actually gone for the next 2.5 weeks, starting off with Infor next week, which is an ERP solution, and then I go to Austin for Logic Monitor, which is an observability platform. Back out west to LA for Teradata, which is a data platform, And then back to Seattle for Amazon has an analyst function, which we're actually going to be going to a Thursday night football game, which should be pretty spectacular. We can talk a little bit about, when I'm on the road, about how AWS is influencing the NFL and some of these football games, which sports technology at AWS has been a big deal. And then I'll be in New York after that for IBM. So quite a bit of travel, but this is where we really get a chance to take advantage of being close to the vendors and getting to understand their technology a little bit more. It's one of those great things about the job.
We will definitely have to do a Game Time Tech Pod while you're at AWS. I will be, I think at that time, I will be at Adobe Max. I think everybody's on the road this entire month, but all good stuff. And why don't you wrap it up for us? Because we've gone way over time.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. Yes, this was a great one, episode 39. You can follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn. Take a look at the show notes, which we have all the details of everything we talked about with links and everything. But if you have something that you'd like us to talk about, please reach out to us. We'd love to take that in consideration. Everybody have a great rest of the week and weekend. We'll look forward to talking to everyone on our next episode. Thank you very much. Robert Kramer and Melanie Brue, More Insights and Strategy.